Now I will show you how to upload your local repository on GitHub. As you can see, we are on the GitHub page. As you know, to start a repository, you can click this plus sign and then choose this new repository option. But you can also click this button right here, start a project. So let's do this way. Let's click it. Let's call our new repository project 2. Let's skip the description this time. Let's make it public. And now this time we want to skip also this option right here with adding a README file to our repository. This way the initial commit won't be created and we will be able to push our local repository to GitHub, which you will see in a moment. So let's leave all these options unchecked and let's hit this button, create repository. Now you can see we have a whole different screen than the last time. And here you can see some suggestions what you can do right now. You can create a new repository on the command line, and here you have shown the way to do it. You can push an existing repository from the command line, and also you have a description how to do it below, or you can import code from another repository. What we are going to do in this video is creating a new local repository and then pushing it to the remote repository on GitHub. Now we are in Visual Studio Code. As you can see, I have a small project open right here. It's located on my desktop in a folder called mini website, you can see right here. And all I got here are 2 files. One of them is index.html, which you can see right here. And the other one is style CSS. So this is a small, simple project where I want to initialize a repository on my computer and then push it to GitHub. So first thing we need to do is open the terminal. Let's go to View Overlap, the terminal option. Let's initialize our repository like this. Now you can see we have our repository created. Let's go to Git Overlap. Let's add these files to the staging area with this plus sign. And let's commit these changes with the commit message of initial commit. So let's commit it, hitting this check sign right here, just like this. Let's check it in our terminal. Git log. We can see everything works fine. We have our initial commit right here. Let's clear our console. And now let's go back to our GitHub. We are interested in this way of adding a repository to GitHub. These commands can be skipped in our case, but we want to copy this command right here. Let's go to our Visual Studio Code. Let's paste it. And let's say something what this command actually is and what it does. Git remote says that we are pointing to a remote repository, that we want to connect our local repository with the remote one. Then we have the add quote, which says that we want to add a connection to our remote repository. The next thing is the name of this connection. Origin is a default name, but we can change it, and I'll show you in the next videos how to do it. And the last step is the particular address to our remote repository. As you can see, it's the exact address to this repository on GitHub. We got github.com/depitson/project2.git. And now if we hit enter, we will connect our local repository and our remote repository on GitHub, and we will be able to upload our changes from our computer to the GitHub or to download some changes from the GitHub to our computer. Those 2 repositories will be connected. So let's hit enter. As you can see, nothing changed, but trust me, now our connection is settled. So let's go back to GitHub once again, because now we have to copy the last command right here to push our local repository to our remote repository on GitHub. Let's copy it. Let's go back to the Visual Studio Code. Let's paste it. And let's say a few words what we are actually doing with this command. So first, we settled a connection between our local and remote repository. We named this connection origin and give it this particular address. And now we are saying that we want to push the changes from our local repository to the remote repository of name origin, which has this address inside it, on its main branch. Now let's hit enter. And this is something that bugs me on GitHub right now, because you may get this error, and it's related to the name of our main branch. Because in Git, when we do the first commit, our main branch is by default named master. But as you could see on GitHub in the previous video, the same main branch is named main. So if you get this error, all we want to do is to change the name main to name master, because we are pointing what actually we want to push to the remote repository. Here are pointing the origin name, which has this address to our remote repository, and which branch do we want to push. Let's check if master works. Let's hit enter. And at this point, if you're doing this the first time, this is what you'll get. A window to log into the GitHub. You have to do it once, then you'll be logged in until you sign out. You can sign up right here if you don't have an account yet. You can use our personal token if you have one, or you can use this option, sign in with your browser. Let's click it. We can see this info right here. Please complete authentication in your browser. So you should get this window in your browser. And all you have to do is click this button, Authorize Git Credential Manager. Let's click it. Let's confirm our password. So I will do this on my own and get back to you in a minute. Let's confirm our password. And we got authentication succeeded. Let's close this tab. Let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. And we got this information that everything went fine. So let's go back to our repository page. Let's refresh it. And here you can see that our local repository has been pushed to the remote repository, which you can see exactly right here. Here we can see we have our files, which is index.html and style CSS, which was added to the repository in our initial commit. We can see that we have no README file in this case. Of course, we can add it clicking this button. We can go to see our commit. As we know, we have one commit. Who made it? When did it happen? But let's go back. We can see that our default branch is branch master, not main. So keep that in mind. Of course, you can name it however you want. But just remember that if something with pushing your local repository to your remote repository doesn't work, check if the names fits. Because as I said a moment ago, the default branch set by Git is named master, and the same default branch named by GitHub and recommended in the suggestions in GitHub, as you could see, was called main. Just keep that in mind. But let's say we want to change something in our project now. Let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. Let's change this font size, for example, to 3 rem. Let's save it. We can see this file has been modified. Let's commit it. With the commit message, change the font size of H1 tag. Let's click the commit button. So now our changes has been committed. And to have these changes in our remote repository, all we have to do is to push these changes once again with the same command, git push uflag origin master. Let's hit enter. And you can see everything worked fine. Let's go back to our GitHub. Let's refresh the page. And you can see the changes on your screen. We have style CSS file. We have another commit highlighted here with the commit message change the font size of H1 tag, and it was made 1 minute ago. We can see we have 2 commits now. We can click it, check them. We have our initial commit and our next commit, which is change the font size of H1 tag. We can of course check this commit. Let's click it. We can see the changes, what changed during this commit. We can see we changed our style CSS file where we had font size 4 rem. Now we have font size 3 rem. And we can clearly see what actually happened during this commit. But now let's go back to our project site. As we can see, GitHub suggests us to create a README file. As I said, we can do it by clicking this button, but let's do it in Visual Studio Code. Let's open our code editor once again. Let's go to our files overlap and create a new file, which would be readme.md. Let's hit enter. Let's put something in it. Let it be project 2. Something like this. And a description. Let's save it. Let's go to our Git tab. Let's add it to the staging area. Let's write a commit message. Create the readme.md file. Let's commit it. Now let's check our git log. Let's clear our console first. We can see all our commits right here, from the initial commit to the last commit, which is create the readme.md file. Let's press the Q key on our keyboard to go back. Clear this console. Now let's push these changes to our remote repository. Let's try something else this time. Let's delete all of this. Let's just leave git push and see if it works. Let's hit enter. As you can see, it probably worked perfectly fine. And I'll tell you in the next video exactly why did it happen. But let's go back to our project and refresh the page. And we can see we have our readme.md file right here in our working directory. And here we can see the content of this file on our repository page. As you know, the README file is a good place to put any info about our project for people to see. Now I want to show you how to delete a repository from our account if we want to. All you have to do is to go to your profile, go to repositories, select project 1 for example, go to settings, which you can see right here. Let's click it and scroll all the way down to the danger zone, as you can see right here, where you can see this option at the bottom, delete this repository. And if we want to delete it, all we need to do is to click this button where you can see delete this repository. So for this video, that would be all, but that's not over yet.